Did you go to that meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene our regular meeting of council, and first up on the agenda is public input period. Is there anyone not on the agenda who would like to speak to council? Come forward. Nobody, you're all here for regular business. Oh, come on forward. Please state your name and address for council, please.
Hello, Dmitry Lesnovich, 1719A, First Ave. I'd just like to speak towards the request for variance today at 1920 Park. I'd like to support that variance. I'm a local designer who's been helping them with their drawings, and it makes sense for them, and I think we're doing what's in there in the city's best interest.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else for public input? All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Andrew, and Andy seconds, and I would like to add a special presentation. It will be our new item number 6A, so it's going to be first up. And I am very pleased to say that we have a special honor that we're giving tonight, and this is for Martin. Yeah, shocked look there. This is from the FCM, to honor Martin's contribution to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities International Program, and then we have a surprise guest who's also going to join the festivities here. So first of all, I want to say for over 25 years, countless municipal experts have worked with FCM International, and they share their knowledge and experience overseas with counterparts in Africa, Asia, Middle East, Eastern Europe, Caribbean, Latin America. And the FCM's annual International Awards of Excellence recognize outstanding individual contributions to their programs. And this year is the final year of the Municipal Partners for Economic Development program, and Martin has made a significant and profound contribution. So, I'm just going to give you a little summary here, because this guy's been really busy. Okay, he's been highly involved with this program in support of the city of Soc Trang in Vietnam since the beginning, and that was in 2011, and the Caribbean Local Economic Development Program as well, and he continued his personal involvement after he retired. So this keeps on ticking. And volunteer contributions included 6 technical missions to Vietnam, keynote contribution to 2 regional events in Asia, including a training on local economic development, organized and hosted a study tour in Canada for Vietnamese delegation. In the Caribbean, he contributed to the Local Area Economic Profiling Program, conducted a Local Area Economic Profiling, so you got these acronyms here, mission in Tobago, conducted local economic development workshops in Trinidad and Tobago. For FCMI Global, we developed materials on trade and development for FCMI, contributed to program materials on municipal asset management. Now we know why he has so much to say on our program. And participated in FCM's Local Economic Development Forum in Ottawa. So in recognition of all his years of dedication and selfless contribution to volunteer hours, it's my privilege and honor on behalf of FCMI to present this award to Martin. And I'm so proud that he is a member of our council and is directing his considerable energy and talents to helping our organization as one of Rossland's new councilors. And now I'm going to give this award. This is from the FCMI. And then I'm going to let our special guest have a few words. There you go. All right. Okay. Special guest, please identify yourself.
I'm Richard Walton, Mayor of North Vancouver District.
Good. Welcome. And what would you like to say to Martin and our council and gallery here tonight?
I'd like to say good evening, Rossland. It's a privilege to be in your council chamber and voice and to say a few kind words about a rascal and a rogue who's on your council. And I shall read formally now. Councillor Martin Cruz is a true citizen of the world. His home may be in Rossland, but he is a gracious ambassador, teacher, and facilitator, equally at home in the business, government, or NGO sectors, motivated by the entrepreneurial energy of building value or the joy of sharing knowledge and making lives better. He has moved between paid engagements and volunteer commitments seamlessly and assisted First Nations in Alberta and developing countries all over the world. The world needs more Martin Cruzes. He is the quintessential Canadian, multicultural in spirit, fair and kind, multilingual, courteous and unselfish. He treats people throughout the world with dignity, regardless of their age, their ethnicity, or their level of education. Watching him subtly coach Vietnamese Communist Party officials into giving credit and advancement to young female municipal workers showed diplomacy and humanity, and only Martin could have taught that lesson without crossing the line. We miss Martin terribly in North Vancouver, but are very pleased that he's back in Rossland with Marianne, and hopefully plotting more schemes to make the world and Rossland better places. Martin, congratulations, old friend. This award is being given to exactly the kind of person who should receive it. One who gives selflessly, and expects only the intrinsic reward that giving and teaching brings. And I will finish with words of that great 14th century writer, Geoffrey Chaucer, who in describing the making of a teacher described Martin, or perhaps Martin's 14th century ancestor in Flanders across the English Channel. Of study took he utmost care and need, not one word spoke he more than was his need. And that was said in fullest reverence, and short and quick and full of high good sense. Pregnant of moral virtue was his speech, and gladly would he learn and gladly teach. So congratulations, Martin, from all of us in North Vancouver on receiving this wonderful acknowledgement from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. We miss you.
Thank you, Richard. That's great. We appreciate you joining us tonight. I know it was a big surprise for Martin. Well, this whole thing is. He's a little bit stunned. But we really appreciate you joining us, and thanks so much.
My privilege.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. There you go. We don't always have surprises like that. All right. First up, we have a delegation from School District 20. Mr. Gord Smith, School Trustee, if you'd like to come forward and present to Council on enrollment and an update on future planning in School District 20, that would be great. Do you have something going on here?
I could.
You don't have to. I just wasn't sure if I should move.
I'm sure I got some family photos. I will speak to a presentation that is online as part of our agenda. I don't think it's necessary to throw it up on the screen, though. So thank you. Congratulations, Martin. Is there any cake in the corner? No?
Tequila later.
Congratulations. So thank you for inviting me to speak to you this evening. I know you have a busy agenda, so I will keep it brief. And Your Worship, if you have any questions, just make sure you interrupt me along the way. But I was asked to come tonight and briefly speak about enrollment for School District 20, specifically looking at RSS here in Rossland. And I have handed out something to Council, and it is our enrollment projections, and they are based on the IHA data on the birth rates with some assumptions, and it is across the district, and we're looking out to 2020. And you can see some fluctuations, and of course, it's not written in stone. It's a projection. It's an estimate. But we have been fairly accurate in these. Sometimes there's some puts and takes, given some of the economic activity within the area. But very briefly, if you go through this, I have highlighted the Rossland secondary line. You'll see that we're projecting at 380. It goes up to 400, hovers around the 410. And drops back down again to 405 in the school year 2018-2019, and out to 2020 is at the 415 mark. And you'll notice that sometimes it's a 0.2, it's a 0.3. There's obviously never a 0.3 of a student, but that's just how the projections work out, and it's based on courses. So it's looking fairly stable, that it's going to rise slightly and just hover around that 400 mark. The capacity of the school is approximately 525, so that was based on the previous configuration, so there is room in the school. Certainly if there was a spike in enrollments, if there was some activity which brought some influx or some infill into the school, we would do our best to accommodate that. Most of the configuration changes within the school district has been completed. One piece is still remaining, which is currently before the minister, which is the possible disposal of Blueberry Creek Community School, just outside of Castlegar. But other than that, the configuration challenge, which the board has been chewing on for several years, which was concluded in the previous board, has been done and implemented. And so you'll see right now that the board is committed to the K-9 configuration for RSS. There was a lot of grade 9s that left for Crow this past year, all of them in fact, but that hasn't changed the board's plan for the configuration, so it's very much now up to the community to determine what is the ultimate configuration. Of course, you have the three options within town, which is the Francophone School District, School District 20, and the Seven Summits Independent School. So I think people are still trying out those options and deciding what is best for their kids, and there's some movement back and forth between Seven Summits and School District 20 right now, as students are determining what is the best option for them, and of course we support parental choice. So that's a quick snapshot of the enrollment. So as you can see, it's rising slightly, remaining stable, lots of room within the school. The school is committed, the school district is committed to the K-9 configuration. We'll just have to see how parents decide on where to send their kids from here on in. So are there any questions, Your Worship, on
Any questions?
I had a quick question, Board. I understand that the school board is embarking on a French immersion program.
Correct, yeah.
So, and that's going to be in Castlegar?
Correct, yeah.
So I'm wondering, with having a Francophone school in Rossland, but not being accessible to all kids, is there a chance that we could see, some Roslyn kids end up being bused from kindergarten? I understand too.
Yeah, what we've recently approved was a trial 2-year kindergarten early French immersion program at Twin Rivers, and Twin Rivers is known for its Russian program as well. So there's a lot of experience within that particular facility about the language arts. As you also know that we have the late French immersion here at RSS, that I believe 25 kids with a waiting list, so a lot of interest in that right now. There was certainly talk around the table of if that trial is proving to be successful, could that trial could grow and make other early French immersion programs possible, and that's certainly, we have an eye to that. So we'll give it a 2-year trial run, see what the uptake is on that, see how the staffing levels go, and if it's showing a lot of interest. I personally think that, given the interest in the late French immersion, that there would be a similar interest for early French immersion, perhaps at the kindergarten level in RSS.
So there is the potential.
There is the potential for that.
Kids to end up being bused to attend
right,
that program, that 2-year program.
Yeah. So for your question, with the late French immersion, it goes to I believe grade 7, and then it continues on. Right now at Stanley Humphreys. So if Rossland students wanted to continue taking that late French immersion, there's the option, and we're just kind of exploring. We'll see whether that's feasible or not, of whether there's a desire amongst parents to send their kids to Castlegar or Stanley Humphreys to continue the French immersion program, so that they're graduating with the French immersion Dogwood. So it's the 2 languages. Busing, I'll have to check, Andy, on busing for the kindergarten kids. I think that they're just thinking that the catchment area would be Castlegar, but I don't think that there's any rule to prevent students coming from outside of the area for that. So I'll check and get back to you on that one.
Aaron?
Just a note, I think RSS actually goes up to grade 8. It's 7,
Right,
8 this
I'm
year.
sorry, yeah.
It's unusual because it started as a split. They couldn't get enough in one grade. So it's 7, 8 this year, and maybe 8, 9 next year if they can get the enrollment. But normally it would just go up to 8 and then go to
Right.
Stanley.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Easy crowd.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought I would share with you is that the board is undertaking a strategic plan, quite a comprehensive plan. It has not been done in recent memory at the school district. There has been strategic guiding documents that the school board has been using in terms of budget setting, configuration. Those go along the work around the achievement contract with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent rather. There's a technology plan. So when you look around the district, there's not an overarching strategic document, but there's components thereof that I think everyone has a pretty good sense of the direction. But we're quite certain that if you went around to the different schools and asked staff or students for that matter, what was the board's strategic direction, you would get as many answers as questions. So we've decided that now is the time to do that. We're going to start fairly soon, then we're going to have to put it aside, unfortunately, because our budget process is starting, which is quite a lengthy process. And then we're going to come back to it once the budget is concluded, and we hope to conclude the strategic plan by the end of this year. So just briefly on the process of that, and it is on our last agenda, so if you go to School District 20, pull up the last agenda, it's embedded into the agenda, so it looks like this document, which is a PowerPoint document that's converted to PDF. But just very briefly, what we're going to be doing is starting with some committee meetings with just the board, and bringing, as we have 3 new board members, we want to review some of the things that kind of make up our strategic stepping stones. One is the BC Ed Plan from the Ministry of British Columbia, the Achievement Plan, which is our own document, the Learning and Technology Plan, which is the Wi-Fi and the iPads and the technology for the teachers in the classroom, our HR Committee Action Plan around recognition, and we're going to sit down as a board, we're going to review that, we're going to ask ourselves some questions. What do we want our district and our schools and our staff to be? How does that look? What do we want our students to look like when they leave us? What are their skills, key attributes and abilities? What does success look like? How do we know when we get there? Then we'll describe our current strengths, weaknesses, the SWOT analysis. Then we're going to take kind of our initial analysis of just the board and staff, and we're going to go out to kind of ripple out to our teachers and our QP staff, ask them the same questions. So we kind of do a little bit of a deliberation, then we check in, and then we take that feedback in and we do some more deliberation, and we check in again. So we're kind of contracting and expanding as we're taking the assumptions that we're making, checking back in with our staff, making sure that we have key stakeholder engagement and buy-in. The board doesn't want to go off and create something in isolation and come back and find that the staff feel that they didn't have any say in the matter or participation, feel that they have no buy-in or engagement. So
are you taking it to the public as well?
yes, and that's why I was bringing it to council's attention, was that later on in the process we're going to share our draft directions with our internal audience, which will be our students, teachers, support staff, PACs, and parents. We're looking at a feedback loop in terms of focus groups, perhaps online. We've done online surveys before, have had very limited engagement, so we're not sure whether that's actually valid or not. But once we get our draft directions, and we're thinking of the time frame about October, we're going to share that with the communities as well as our staff, parents. So that may be large community meetings. Certainly it may be advantageous for me to meet with you, but we want to make sure that the communities have a good say into the board's strategic direction as well. So just a heads up, look for that. If you have anything that you want to send me in advance, or any observations or something that you're seeing in the schools or in the community and it's top of mind, don't hesitate to let me know. Give me a call or fire it over in an email, which is gsmith@sd20.bc.ca. I'll stick that in a folder, so when time comes to discuss, I'll be able to pull up relevant feedback. So we're still working on the plan. It's a loose framework right now, but again, the board will be meeting with staff, rippling outwards, constantly checking in, making sure that we have good stakeholder engagement and buy-in as the plan goes forward. We would look to finalize directions, feedback by December 2005, and then from there, leadership. 2015, and the leadership staff will develop action plans and bring that to the board. So I think we're going to stay away from the whole mission statement thing. We're just going to go into something where we can build specific action items that staff can take away and start building towards our strategic objectives, and something that we can measure and reflect back on and make sure that everyone's got an oar in the water and is pulling in the right direction, to use my analogy.
Good. Any questions or comments? Good work.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Well, thank you again for the invitation. I think it's a a good thing for us to have some formal dialogue.
Yeah.
So I'll look forward to meeting with you again soon. And again, if you have any questions or comments or observations within the community and want to get a hold of me, please do so. I'll look forward to it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Rossland. Thanks for coming. Okay, next up, we have a delegation from the Rossland Historical and Archives Society, and I guess you guys are going to be using this, right?
Yeah.
All right, Joel, I'll move to the side.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to bring a presentation to Council. We realise that some decisions have already been made, but we felt that it was still important that, as a whole, you saw where we are headed. And the first thing I'd like to do, for those of you who have not met Joelle Hodgins, Joelle is our new museum director. Used to call them manager, but now she's museum director. She has come to us from Whitehorse, has a degree in history and a diploma in museum studies, and we feel very fortunate to have her on board, as it were. Joelle will make a presentation. She's had a cold. I've got it just in case. We had a meeting this afternoon and she had to keep coughing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm right behind you. Should you need me.
Okay, so yeah, we just wanted to update you on where we are and where we're headed. And we'll just start with the basics. We're a registered charity governed by a volunteer board of directors. And our board members are Libby Martin, Maureen Brown, Jim DeLong, Lydia Yakovic, Tim Ridge, Bill Cody, and Rolly Worsfold. We employ one full-time year-round staff member, that's me, and 3 to 7 part-time seasonal staff, all project-based. We also operate, and really only can operate, with the support of countless volunteers through all of our events and projects, and with great help from the Friends of the Museum Volunteer Committee. In January alone, we had over 150 volunteer hours. So our mission was recently updated in 2011, and that is now to preserve and dynamically present the heritage of Rossland and area. This is a very rough draft, or a rough layout of our museum complex. It's a total of 5 acres. Some of these are buildings that house thousands of artifacts or geological specimens. Others are actually artifacts themselves, like the rope drive compressor and the train caboose and many more throughout there. The Museum and Visitor Center is over 9,600 square feet, and currently the only realistic portion of the property that can remain open year-round for now. Given that we have to have an employee on site for the safety and protection and further research and development of our collection, and this building as a city asset year-round, it's become apparent that the added cost to actually opening the doors to the public is not much more than keeping the doors closed. The lights are already on, the heat has to stay on, and so on. The museum being open in the winter has also been really well received in the community, and as we get the word out and have more events and activities at the museum, it can only get better from there, especially given that winter is the busiest time for Rossland. So just a note, our winter carnival events brought 135 visitors to the museum over 4 days, so that's really good for us. And then being open in the winter also gives us access to new funding streams that are only for year-round facilities. And it gives us a chance to offer part-time employment to a full-time student with the CBT Schoolworks program, and volunteer opportunities such as the student from West Kootenay Teacher Education Program that's helping us with our programming, and a lot more of opportunities with that. Here is our new museum map that we give to visitors to help them find their way, because as many of you have been there, there's lots of nooks and crannies and secret hallways and all kinds of great things to get to, and we don't want anybody to miss anything. So Our major themes are the history of skiing, Kaminko Wing, which is smelting and mining history of the area, the West Kootenay Power Wing, and various dioramas and other displays that showcase the social history of Rossland. And people are always shocked by how much is fit into this museum, and there really is a lot of work put into these displays and a lot to show. And we are also the sponsoring organization for the BC Visitor Information Centre, and it's our duty to ensure visitors get the best and most complete information on the community and support our local businesses as much as possible. This is our strategic direction as it was outlined in the 2013 Plan for Renewal that we refer to as the Luxton Report. We are becoming a community-oriented, sustainable facility, and we're working towards being responsive to the community, serving as its memory and focusing on its contemporary educational needs. This strategic direction is in line with the City of Rossland's strategic direction, and through the Council, the Heritage Commission, the Sustainability Committee, and many other partnerships directly with the City, we can not only become a much-needed community hub, but create economic benefits and be a showcase for the City. Here are some of the goals that were outlined with the Luxton Report, and we see these as the 6 overarching goals for the next few years of what we get done, and they guide our annual goals. So, to safeguard and reimagine our collection, provide dynamic and educational programming, enhance the site, support sustainable operations, and a phased implementation to ensure our success. Here are our 2015 projects and priorities. So I'll provide a bit of detail for them. The numbers beside them are associated with those 6 goals that I just showed you. So as part of the revitalization project, we're in the process of looking for funding and support to complete the engineering plans for the museum building. This would provide the plans for the overall project as opposed to just phase 1, but it of course must be done before we can break ground for phase 1. The continuation of the archival digitization project will allow for easier internal and public access to our photo collection and online order processes. So these are some pictures of our archives. And we included them to show you the current state. It looks overwhelming, but there is a system in there. And it's been a lot of time, effort, and funding that has gone into getting it to where it is, but we still have a long way to go before it can be accessible to the public. And the image in the bottom right there is the research table, and it's packed with new donations that we need to put into our collection. So this isn't a new or uncommon issue for any community museum or archives, but the techniques and procedures for archival systems has changed drastically in the last little while, and there's some backlog to deal with. This project needs to be completed before we can plan for the ultimate archival system that we would need in the revitalization process. And the 2 photos on the left there are our photo room, and the ongoing digitization project is focusing on just that room out of 4 rooms total, and is in itself a very lengthy project. In the end, we will have an amazing resource easily accessible to the public and a strong revenue source for the museum through photo orders and public research requests. So next there is overhauling and growing our programming, like school and group tours and programs, and the new Kids Discovery Zone, and our Heritage Week activities, and a lot more to come with our calendar of events. This comes hand in hand with the calendar of events, with items for all ages, including our annual events and holidays, and many special events and educational opportunities. And then the collections inventory. This is to show the top 2 there are our collection just within the museum. The museum complex itself also has buildings that are storage of our collection. And the one on the bottom there is the Hunter Brothers General Store, and I just picked that photo to show you how much could be packed into a single display. So we need to do a collections inventory, which would be a multi-year project, but it's necessary in order to be prepared for phase 1 of the revitalization project. And it's just time for an inventory for us. And this is where we check that we still have everything, that all objects have the appropriate documentation, and prioritize any of the preservation needs. And then there's also a backlog in the recent donations to the collection. the backlogs are normal for any museum, but the longer we take to deal with them, the more chance there is for information to be lost. So we need to get to them.
You do have an inventory, you have a base inventory, so
Yeah.
you'll just be updating and adding.
Yeah, and making sure that everything is still as it says it was. Nothing has been damaged in the past couple of years and stuff like that, yeah. Next there is updates to the West Kootenai Power Wing and inclusion of a temporary display space within there. So this is just images of our current display, and really people absolutely love it. There's a couple interactive components to it, but I think that we can really bring it up to modern technology standards and find ways to include more in the exhibit itself. And then the last one there is strengthening community partnerships. So a couple of recent examples include the Golden Ticket program, developing satellite displays such as the library in the center there, and downtown businesses, as well as looking elsewhere and working closely with the library, the city rec department, and other local organizations to coordinate our programming to better fulfill the needs of the community. And so then this is an update on the overall museum revitalization project. There's a total of 6 phases in the project. We're just focusing on 1, 2, and 3 there. And 1 is the entry gallery. This includes the admission, gift shop, visitor center, offices, washrooms, and archives, so it's a large part of the building. And that's at $350,000, which includes the engineering plans and a project manager. And our target date there is summer of 2017. Phase 2 is the mining experience, and this is intended to replace what we lost in the closing of the mine, the underground mine tour. And so the amount there is $630,000, and we have some promise from tech and others to support that specific portion of it for sure. And so our target date with that is in line with phase 1, but planning won't start until mid-2016. And the phase 3 is the atrium, and so this is an addition to the building, and that's at $420,000. And our target date is summer of 2018. The atrium is intended to be a gathering space, an event space, rental space, all kinds of stuff like that. And phase 4 to 6 are post-2018. So we're beginning our major fundraising campaign for phase 1 in the next month. And in the interim, we hope that we have and will continue to show the community what a museum can be and the benefits we bring, not just in safeguarding our memories, but in providing dynamic educational opportunities. So through the Revitalization Project Development Committee, we've set up a business planning committee to start focusing on our revenue generation potential and ensuring we're a sustainable operation now through the 6 phases and once the larger project is complete and everything is unveiled. So our current operational budget is $140,000. And our kind of present revenue generation opportunities are merchandising and online store, archival reproductions, public research requests, birthdays, group tours, and historical workshops. And these items would utilize our existing resources, so the archives, our theater, property grounds, and so on, in a much more streamlined and exciting way. And our future opportunities could be conference and meeting facilities, classroom workshop space, renewed and larger theater, and catering space. And the Rossland Museum is striving to be a sustainable operation, and we will continue to seek out more revenue generation potential. But it's important to note that we are a nonprofit organization, and we will never be a money maker for anyone, nor should we be. We're a community resource, and we take on a lot of community programming and support that is important for the city of Rossland to show their support to. And this is just a quick slide of our funding opportunities that we'll continue to go to. And so operational funding is particularly difficult to obtain, but currently we go through the city of Rossland and BC Gaming grants, and we'll continue to look for more options. And then there's plenty of project-based funding, like CBT, Canadian Heritage, which includes Museum Assistance Program, Cultural Spaces, various foundations, Nelson Credit Union, and Kootenai Savings. And then there's specific summer employment programs like Young Canada Works, Canada Summer Jobs, and CBT, and we go to all of those. And sponsorship opportunities like Tech, Fortis, Red, and various local businesses, and our fundraising events and activities. So, that outlines our upcoming plans, and we hope it showed how much is going on and how hard we're trying to fulfill our mandate and be a major resource for the community. And we hope that we can count on the City of Rossland to continue to support us on this path, because it is certainly a win-win for everyone.
Does anyone on council have some questions, comments? Aaron?
Thanks very much for that. It's, and you made it through without a coughing fit, so that's
Well done.
that's a good thing. It's an exciting vision for the future of the museum. Just a couple of questions. A really detailed one. When you talk about making the museum a sustainable operation, you mean financially sustainable?
Yeah.
The next one, I should know the answer to this, and I apologize, but the phase 2, the mining experience, what's the vision for that? What will, I mean, you're not going to reopen that, right?
No, no.
What is the vision for that?
Yeah, it's been closed in and the entryway's been filled in.
Right.
So realistically, it's never going to happen. So our backup plan there is an indoor mining experience.
Okay.
So it would be a rebuild of what it would look like, but it would be indoor,
Got it.
which is, you know, not the real thing, but we can have it open year round, and that's definitely.
But this would go within your existing space. It doesn't, or does it involve an expansion of the actual building?
It's within the West Kootenay Power Wing ski wing area can become the tunnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's additional, like its opening would be an addition to the building.
Okay. Thank you.
You have all the Luxon report plans that have the schematics and everything. Is that on your website?
Yeah, there's a really good presentation though in addition to that, and I don't know if anyone saw that, but I think that tells it a little bit better. It gives really great visuals, so we'll put that on. We'll put that one on.
Okay,
yeah.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be good. Mark, did you have something?
Oh, I'm just curious, I didn't see Roger's house on the schematic. I'm just curious what you use it for. It used to be the mining office building, and there were some mining office displays in there, and
I think it would stay.
have you got some designs for
yeah,
that
it
building
was.
at the moment?
It's the assays office, and it was kind of the guide building to start the mining tour. Is that the building you mean?
No.
Superintendent's
The
building.
two-story building
okay.
across, sort of from beyond
Yeah.
the caboose and
Yeah.
across from the geology.
Oh yeah, it's to the right of the map. The map. That's why I said it was a really rough layout, because I think I've got to redraw that, because it's missing the superintendent's building and the heritage garden and a couple of other things in there. Yeah. So there's more than what was in that. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. No, I spent 27 years up there working with Roger and Jack and Joyce and everyone, and there's a little bit of an emotional attachment.
Oh no,
to,
it's not going anywhere. Yeah, it's a great
to
display.
the museum
definitely.
complex, and I think we really do miss the mine tour, and it's so unfortunate that was shut down. And but it sounds like you've got plans to kind of resurrect the experience, which is really worthwhile.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Lydia and Maureen, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to adopt some motions. We've got motions that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on February 4th be adopted, recommendations within be approved. Do I have a mover for that? Aaron, and seconded by Martin. Any discussion on those minutes? None. All in favor? Opposed? No one. Okay, the minutes of the regular meeting of council held January 26th be adopted. Do I have a mover? Andy and a seconder. Andrew, any discussion? All in favor? All right, thanks. Now, we're moving on to recommendations from staff. We have a memorandum from our planner at the State of the Rossland Indicators Project be adopted, the 2014 State of Rossland Indicators Project. Do I have a mover for that? Lloyd, a seconder. Aaron, okay, any discussion? Have some comments or questions on the indicators report? Aaron?
This is a really well done report, and in spite of the fact that some of the indicators are discontinuous because of factors beyond our control, I think this validates for me the hope when we started this project in the Sustainability Commission that it would give us a nice baseline, and then going on from the baseline, a snapshot of where we're going in Rossland, and a quick way to get a rough picture of those things that are sort of under control and those things that need some work. I think you've done a really good job putting it together, and thank you for that.
Andy?
Likewise, certainly all those things. And a question I had, I was surprised to see what I felt was a relatively low survey rate. And I would, not that I know, and I don't know how these things typically work, but, or at least I have an idea how they typically work. It's not unusual to have low rates when it comes to getting responses from average citizens about, detailed questions. But I'm wondering how you might see the potential of increasing that for the future, so that, the next time, is there a strategy that I mean, I'm sure you tried your best, and
yeah, I put it on the email list,
Yeah.
sent it out to everybody, told everybody who could to Facebook it if they wanted, put it on newspaper, advertising. Always open for ideas though, on how to get it out there.
Other comments? I had a couple. The single-family dwelling number went down. I'm just curious how that could happen. It looked like it went down by 11 units, and we didn't tear down any houses, so.
There was actually 2 houses torn down in the city, and then I would say it would be calculation errors.
Okay.
From the first time. Some of the numbers will reflect that, even with secondary suites and multi-family dwellings. I'd say over the past few years we have kept track of these things a little bit better than we had in the initial report.
Okay.
So there will be, I'd say going forward, it will continue to get better and probably be able to be better compared to this year rather than the first time.
Okay, so we may see more consistency in the future. Also, you mentioned there were some difficulties in measuring the parkland area, and I'm wondering if there's any sort of a strategy or any kind of methods that you see out there in the planning world that would help.
Yeah, we talked about which is the best way to measure it, or what are we trying to measure. Should we think about zoning, considering it would change? Most people would just actually take their parks and measure it, and that would be it. But because Rossland is a little bit different than your average urban center with so much area surrounding us that could be considered parkland or zoned in that way, it's difficult to just look at playground parks or active parks.
Martin?
I thought it was a great report, good overview, good job. A couple of things in the chart. You mentioned property taxes needs attention, housing affordability, and court housing needs attention, and you have a few more. What's sort of the next step in addressing that?
That's up to you.
All right, so you're not carrying the ball on this thing.
No.
This gets thrown back
Yeah.
to advise council, and then it's up to council to sort of determine. And I think to some extent, Aaron, I mean, we're sort of suggesting this, the Sustainability Commission would have some involvement in
Look at
addressing
Andrew,
this.
he's the liaison now.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
It actually didn't come up as a really strong one that night at the 7 Summit. Housing affordability wasn't huge. It was.
What about taxes?
I guess, yeah, Patricia was talking about it. They just didn't have a particular idea at the time, but a need.
But just from a process point of view, and next steps, does the ball now rest with the commission?
I think so, and that'll be part of what comes out of last week, is they're going to decide sort of who's the best lead on different areas. But
tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow night we'll hear what they came up with last week.
This is really just to represent a snapshot in
Sure.
time and to compare to the previous report, to see how we're doing on the various indicators. And we can use that information in moving forward and deciding what are our priorities or not, and what do we want to do with this information.
Okay, thank you.
I think the intent of putting this thing together originally, and I think it stands strong still, was to give council and Rossland a picture of where we're at. And if it shows up deficiencies, for example, in property taxes, that its job is done, right? It's given us some pretty good detail on comparative statistics between a couple of representative communities. Now it's our job to sit down and think, is that a problem, and what can we do about it? Right, so the job of the survey is finished by bringing up that issue. Now it becomes our job. I don't think it's assumed that any or all of this falls into the bailiwick of the Sustainability Commission. I mean, their ongoing work, as I understand it, is subject to what they're talking about being interested in, and conversation between them and council. Now, we may direct them to work on this stuff, but the assumption is not that all of this stuff that needs attention in here becomes the job of the Sustainability Commission. That's not what the...
Well, it's much the way the Strategic Sustainability Plan is not just directed to the Sustainability Commission,
Right.
It's for council. It's a really guiding document for council, as this, and certain portions of it that'll be taken out by one group or another. Yes,
Right,
Mark?
so therefore the next step is, if there's something the Sustainability Commission can address, then they would take the ball and run with it. And also, this is useful information as, sort of background information for an upcoming council strategic planning
Right.
session then later this year.
Council could direct the Sustainability Commission to look at a particular area too. That's part of our thing. I thought it was great to see that 89% of Rosslanders volunteer at something or another at some point or another. That was awesome. Andy?
I'm interested in knowing, is there a plan to make this survey public? And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it's going to get posted to the website and such, but I would hope
We'll
that...
mention it. We have a newsletter coming out this month,
Great.
and it'll be mentioned there, and hopefully...
Hope that the
press-
media as well picks up the trust on this one, because I think, to be honest, it'd be interesting, as much as I see that this... What's that?
It's hot stuff.
Yeah, it is tough stuff. As much as I see its value to council on the whole, and to the ST committee, for example, I see the greater opportunity too for the citizens to actually take a look at some of this information and provide us feedback back and potential initiatives forward.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Also, I did note that Seven Summits was referred to as a private school, and technically it isn't
Yeah.
a private school, so...
There was actually someone else mentioned that to me too, so that
Okay.
was a little note that needs fixing.
Okay, so before it goes out public, if we can make that change, that would be great. Anybody have anything else? I saw a great opportunity under the governance section for council, because there was satisfaction with decision-making was really low. So, we have our work cut out for us, but it's a great opportunity too,
We can only go up.
We can only go up from there, so that's great. So, thank you, Stacey, it's really a great piece of work. So, do we have any further discussion on it, or I'll call the question on voting to adopt it. All in favor? Okay, all right, great. Now, we are moving into, we've got a development... Okay, so we have a request for council decision on the development variance permit application for 1920 Park Street from the planner. And that council approves the development variance permit application to reduce the exterior side setback from 3 meters to 0.3 meters, reduce the rear setback from 2 meters to 0.3 meters, increase driveway width from 4 meters to 6.5, and for the property legally described as, I will not read it, 1920 Park Street, affectionately known as. Do I have a mover to that motion? Martin, seconder, Andy, and now we have some discussion. Martin?
Yeah, the only question I had was just the access to the tennis court, washroom building through that alley, and that we are just satisfied that there's enough room in the access. There's no encroachment on the alley.
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? No one. Great, thank you. Okay, now we have a request for council decision on the Washington Street Water Main Replacement Project, the grant application. This, we got a little bit more information in email. Did everybody see that? There was a proposed budget and there was a map that kind of shows. So the recommendation is that council authorizes the Washington Street Water Main Replacement Project to proceed if the city is successful in the application to the Canada-British Columbia New Building Canada Fund, Small Communities Fund, what a mouthful. And further, that council commits and budgets up to $1,090,000, $850, as the city's share of the eligible project costs and all the ineligible costs under the New Building Canada Fund, Small Communities Fund grant opportunity. Do I have a mover to that? Martin says yes, and Lloyd seconds it, and now let's have a little discussion. How do we feel about this? Martin?
Okay, so the motion reads if,
Yes.
right?
If.
Yeah, if, okay, good. The question I have is that if it's a $2.16 million total project cost for the water line, there are obviously associated costs with sewer, curb and gutter, et cetera, et cetera. So the project scope is in the order of $6 million, according to what Darren had presented, or Lois had presented some time ago. And so what we didn't talk about was how that thing would be financed. So, you know, I'm always a little uncomfortable when we're asked to make a decision on part of a project without all of the information being presented. And I'm going to just assume that the project cost of $6 million is really on the table for consideration by council. This is part of it. I'm hoping for grants to cover a good part of the entire $6 million project. And the project decision to proceed or not will be dependent on the grants.
I think it's safe to say it could be dependent on the grants and a funding plan for the rest of it.
That was going to be the next point, which is that at some point we should have a presentation from staff on, you know, how, what the financial impact will be actually, and how it will be financed. So, you know, we talked a little bit about debt financing and what that means to total debt load and all that. So we need to go and review that at some point. I think we're all in concurrence with it. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Lloyd?
No, it's just that we did talk about phasing this thing. We realized to go for the full $6 million would be probably prohibitive in our application for the grant. But, you know, one of the things, if we're successful in getting this grant, you know, how we're going to fund it. I don't think we'll ever find cheaper money than there's available right now. So that might be one of the avenues we pursue.
Well, one of the situations with this is that we couldn't go for this whole project under the way the grants are structured this year. It's not that we didn't think about it, but all the different components wouldn't all be eligible for this one. But we do have the idea that we'll bring a second grant forward, and they'll be part of another part of this project. So there's potential that we get a lot. I mean, if we get the grants, that we have a lot of help funding. Andy?
That was my question.
Thank
you.
Yes.
One question I probably should have asked in our first meeting, is there a limit, time limit on when you spend the grant for these ones? When you have to start spending the grant?
I think there was.
Yeah, there
Usually
is.
Yeah, it was future enough.
It's future enough that we don't need to worry.
Yeah.
I think in 2017 or 18.
So we could get it this year and then try to apply for some of the other sections perhaps next year, and then piece it all together.
Lloyd, did you have something else?
No.
No. Okay, I'll call the question on this. All in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Okay, so bylaws. Request for council decision on bylaw number 2581, zoning amendment bylaw for 3975 Red Mountain Road. And that bylaw 2581, zoning amendment, be read for a second time, and that a public hearing be set for Monday, March 9th, 2015. Do we have a mover for that? Andy, seconded by Aaron. Do we have any discussion on this? We've kind of sent this one round the bend a few times. All good? Oh, Lloyd?
I just asked Tracy about having that road surveyed. You know, has it been done?
That's a question through to our planner. Survey.
But it will be a part of the easement that gets registered on the road.
And that survey cost is handled by whom?
By the applicant.
By the applicant. Okay.
Well, we had a discussion about a gazetted road and Moss.
Yeah.
Are they going to do that?
They're going to do the gazetted portion of the road, and then so that will probably reduce the cost to the applicant significantly by adding the easement for the snow on top of it.
Okay, so it'd be a little additional part that gets surveyed because the gazetted road doesn't cover the applicant's actual property, right?
Sort of.
Oh.
It's kind of a long story, so I was trying to avoid going into big specifics of it.
Give us the condensed version.
But the condensed version is, right now it's a gazetted road, therefore That's just a notice on title, and they give that notice says that 25 feet either side of the central line of Red Mountain Road is for a road. But there's no line work anywhere in a survey. If you searched on a survey, you would never see that anywhere. So because of some issues that have come up because of this, and it's common all over the province, MOT is in a process of trying to correct all these Gazette notices that are registered on several properties all through the province. And they kind of are doing it on an issue basis. So now the Red Mountain Road portion has been flagged to them, so they are, will be in the process this spring of surveying out that Gazette notice so that it actually is a physical line on a paper. So that if you do a search on a title, you will see that there is a line and a road on there. Whereas now, if you did a search on this person's property, you wouldn't know it was there. It's very hard to find the Gazette notice. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Tried to be the condensed version.
Okay, and then one issue that had come up was about the easement itself, that even though there's gonna be a snow, allowance for the city to push snow on the applicant's property, like if he wants to develop parking and whatever else he wants to do, that's not gonna interfere with that. So we're in this together with the applicant. We appreciate his efforts to bring economic development to our town. We'll work collaboratively. Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. None opposed. Okay, a request for council decision on bylaw 2582 zoning amendment for 1678 3rd Avenue. So this is that the bylaw be read for a first and second time and that a public hearing be set for Monday, March 9th. Do I have a mover for that? Lloyd, and a seconder. Andrew, discussion, Lloyd?
Well, I think there was a bit of confusion of just which lots were in question here, but
I was confused.
My understanding is it's the most westerly end of 3rd Avenue to the north side, and I don't see a problem there. But the contentious thing was whether or not it was on the corner of Davis and 3rd, on the east corner there. And that used to be a mine shaft under that house. And there was a sinkhole in the yard, and the fellow had to move out. Well, Kamiko at the time had to go in and fix that. But that's not the house or the area in question.
And hopefully it's been fixed anyway.
It was fixed.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? Martin?
Yeah, the only question I have is regarding the connection. I mean, we're talking about subdivision here, right? So we have subdivision rules as opposed to severance rules, because during the orientation you kindly explained that we don't distinguish between severances and subdivisions. So if we have rules about subdivision, do they apply here?
At subdivision they do, yes.
Yeah, okay, and I mean,
so that's the next step in his process, is to apply for it.
So I just wanted to get clear in my mind that are there impost fees that are required to be paid by the applicant?
Are there what fees?
Impost fees.
Impost fees? I'm not sure what that is.
All right. So various charges that are usually aligned with subdivision. So in other words, in our case,
development cost charges, that kind of?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
So we don't have DCCs, but Darren was saying in the report that there needs to be some oversizing of the water line.
Some upsizing of the water lining. So it,
right.
if maybe upon subdivision, when they do a testing, to see if the water line is adequate enough to service the properties that are on it, it's the responsibility of the developer to upsize that line to ensure that a subdivision can take place. So he would pay for that, or she would pay for that.
Okay, so you've just answered the question. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on this one? All in favor? Opposed? None. Okay. All right, the last one is that bylaw number 2580, our new procedure bylaw, be adopted. Do I have a mover for that? Martin?
Seconded.
Second by Lloyd, okay. Any discussion? We've sent this one around quite a bit. Yeah, let's not start over. Okay, no further comments? Great. All in favor? Opposed? None. Great. Okay, we have no staff updates and reports at this point, but we have requests arriving from correspondence. And the first one we'll look at is correspondence from the Rossland Public Library. And they are asking us to reconsider the level of support for the Rossland Library. Do we have any motion or comments, discussion here? Aaron?
Just quickly, I mean, this is one of the groups that it hurt me to actually cut funding for, because, you know, I was genuinely impressed with their vision for a library in future, and impressed with the statistics they provided us on public use. But at the same time, everybody got a haircut, and theirs was 2.8% over the allocation from 2014. So in the letter, they talk about a funding shortfall of $12,487. That's short of what they requested. Their request was significantly up from their 2014 allocation. So we're talking from their 2014 allocation, a 2.8% cut, which, you know, I regretted making, as I say, but everybody's feeling some pain, and I don't think that's undue pain.
Okay. Andy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that, unfortunately, the city was in a position where we had to take a look at our overall budget requirements, and everybody's taken a bit of a hit.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, same thing. I thought that letter you wrote was very good, like that out. That was well done.
Okay, thanks. I guess, you know, I felt it was actually really heartbreaking, because the library has turned itself around significantly in the last few years, and I really would have liked to support them. They've done a terrific job. They are doing a terrific job. Community supports them a lot, right? And so I do think we need to be careful when we look at these groups, that we are really looking at the value each group presents to the community, you know, and yes, 2.8, you know, cut is whatever. But one of the things that they did say was that they were worried that by us showing a lack of support for what they asked for, that would look poorly when they go to other funders. And I just want to make sure, and I'll say this to them too, that it's not that we don't support them, and really, really feel strongly that they're doing a great job, and I would express that in any letter of support that I write on their behalf. It's just we are faced with difficult financial choices and situations, so we really had no choice. Anyway, so that's it. Ms. Tracy.
I'll just comment that we had a representative from the library in here late last week, and they're coming up with some really neat funding opportunities, and one of them is going to be to purchase a chair. So you can purchase a chair for the library.
Good.
And
Great.
there'll be some recognition for that.
Yeah, and they are launching their fundraising thing. They've got a website that they're trying to do some initiatives in.
I'm assuming that this initiative is mostly for their capital project, and not as much operational.
No, it would be for the refurbishing of the.
Yeah, and I appreciate what they're coming from.
Which their plans are very exciting for the library. I think they'll probably get good support for their capital project upgrade, I hope. Okay, so we have nothing, no motions or anything on that, just a little discussion. Now we have communication from the Rossland Beer Company. We have Petri here with us tonight, and the fence issue. So do we have some commentary on that? Also, I just want to point out that the minutes from the Design Review Committee that are supporting their comments on the fence and everything is in this package coming up in our information items. So we need to keep that in mind. That we'll be asked to approve those recommendations made by the Design Review Committee when we look at their minutes. But if you want to have a little conversation about this letter, now's the time. Yeah, Andrew.
And I guess I'll save some of this for the design review part coming up a little bit later, but they tie right back in. I thought the plan looks good, and I think when you look at the pictures, there's wood all over the place down there, and then you look at the wood you guys have inside your place, and you've done a beautiful job with it. I think it looks super heritage what you've done in there. I like it a lot. I think it's a great idea, and when we get to design review, I was almost going to say, well, I want to know a little bit more about the process, but I almost want to say, let's go case by case until we have a chance to review that bylaw spring, early summer.
Okay. Any other comments on the letter? Yeah, Aaron.
Just quickly, I'm not a very visual guy, I guess. I couldn't get a good idea of what's going on from this. I mean, I went through the Design Review Committee recommendations, and they recommend how it should be. But I don't have a good sense of the proposal from Rossland Brewing Company, what they wanted it to be, as opposed to what the recommendation was. And I wonder if we could ask the gallery to just give us a quick rundown.
For sure. I gave Stacy some papers of diagrams on what it looked like. I'm not sure if you got that in architectural layout.
It's in here, but it's sort of black and white. And
so yeah, essentially that's the look. The biggest change that we would make, which was a suggestion, is that we would turn the wood instead of horizontal, it'd be vertical.
Right.
It's not a big look change, but ideally it's gonna be around that cement pad that we have in front of our garage door. Will be closed off with a wooded area. That's, I don't wanna use the word wooded, but that's the look we're going for. We think that it would look historic and clean and smart and very respectable of our town from many, many different aspects. The walkway would go along the wall. It would be about this wide. It would be handicap standards, railings along the whole way. It would kitty corner around the wall and into that kind of dugout that comes out. There's like a false kind of shack almost looking that comes out of that wall.
Okay.
It looks separate from the front area. That would be where our washroom door would go into. So basically it's a walkway along the wall, and the only main area is the deck. We're calling it a deck area, but it really is going to be a concrete pad as the ground and just a wood fencing around it.
And is the main point just to keep the public from using the restroom? They have to be on the beer patio?
That's part of it, but it's also for, that it is going to be a place where people can consume beer. So it needs to be clearly with the liquor commission, like with all the rules. It has to be definitely different from any surrounding area.
Okay. Let's let Lloyd go first.
Can I ask this all?
Sure, you
The
can.
other contentious thing was raw wood, then. They wanted you to paint it.
Right. And we were just hoping that we could stain it, or, you know, we wanted it to look, 9 different variations of wood is fine. We thought that the wood look would be smart, especially with the fence that was really close to us in between, those sourdough alley area. There's a wooden fence that goes along there.
Yeah, there's a picture of it in our packet.
That fence will go out just as far as where our wood deck is. So, and as far as not being able to see that from the main street, I took pictures with my iPhone just from there, right beside the liquor store area, and can clearly see that nice, beautiful wood fence. It looks great. Like, whoever put it up did a great job. It looks awesome. We want that same type of look for the brewery. Just really simple, clean look, kind of like the look in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Aaron first and then Martin.
Yeah, so my supplementary question was going to be the same as Lloyd's. I guess the big item of contention here is whether you're going to paint or stain that fence.
I guess so, yeah.
And the design review committee is referring to a passage in their, what is this document?
It's the design
The
review
Site Design Review Committee guidelines that says that historically picket fences were painted wood fences, and they'd like to retain that.
For sure, and I think the term picket fences is used a little loosely, like, the picket fence to me reminds me of Huckleberry Finn and that kind of a white painted, where that's not the image at all. It's not gonna be a cheap looking fence. It's gonna look just like the wood beams with the metal bars beside the chocolate shop. Those are mostly wooden beams, so it'll be mostly like a sturdy look, and it won't look like 2x4 cheapish at all. So like any kind of picket fence reference wouldn't be fair to it. It's going to be a really professional, well done connection between people and Rossland Beer Company. Just one more good reason to go.
So I was going to express my preference for not painting that fence, and especially given that there's other wood features around there that are existing, and the fact that it may be that there are some elements of historic accuracy that we don't want to actually be slaves to. I don't like painted wood fences, and I think they're ugly.
I think we'll do that when we talk about the minutes. I think we'll want to adjust their minutes. I mean, continue your thoughts,
But so my thoughts are, what do we do? And I guess we'll come to this when we talk about the minutes. What do we do in this case? Because the design review committee has given us this recommendation, and it's according to their own guidelines, right? And we've got an entrepreneur in the city that we want to do right by, that's putting up something that is not an eyesore, as he points out. It's not a flashing pink neon sign or anything. But at the same time, we don't want to, quash the authority of the design review committee based on people like my preference, because I know nothing about heritage, right? So what do we do in a case like this? And I guess we'll come to that discussion when we go to talk about their
Martin.
The only question I have is, that's a vacant lot, I presume, is it? between, whatever that building is on the left and the old hardware store.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, who owns the lot, and is there some potential of it being developed at some point?
John, you go ahead.
It's Sourdough Alley Holdings,
Who's
the
that?
same people who own actually the whole block.
Yes, they own the laundromat. The beauty of it,
Yeah, so
as
they
far as
own the whole
licensing
block.
goes, they own the laundromat and they own the brewery
And the
building.
vacant lot.
So they're in between, they know all the information, what's going on, they're okay with everything that's happening.
So I guess the question is, does the landowner contemplate, building another building at some point on that
No,
vacant space?
we want that to be a green, beautiful
So it's
area.
an open space area?
Yeah, eventually, we want that to be a place where.
Okay, so that has some implication then for the fencing and
For sure.
for use of the property. Okay, thank you.
John, is there anything?
No, just
Okay,
agree
just
with
that.
that.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do, won't necessarily, this is nice, good discussion, but I think when we get to actually talking about the minutes, then I'd like to have our planner who sits with that committee, sits, not with the committee exactly, but is there in attendance to maybe talk a little bit more about what the committee's view, maybe a little discussion when we get there. Okay, so, you gotta wait a little bit longer. Okay, so now we have information items, and I'd just like to say, who wants to pull some out, besides we know we're gonna do B. What other ones, Martin?
Just curious about the new fire truck for Rossland at $424,000.
Okay, hold on, we're just collecting the letters, and then we'll talk about the specifics. So what are we collecting? That one, what letter is that one?
C.
Okay, so we've got
13C.
B and C. While you think about it, John, do you have any?
No.
Andrew? Okay, Andy?
No.
No.
Lloyd?
Francophone,
Just tell me the letter.
daycare, I'm just trying to find it.
Francophone,
Daycare, wasn't it, on there?
oh, the letter for the daycare, yeah.
D?
D.
D, item number D.
Okay,
Yeah, there
B,
is.
C, D, Martin, any others?
Where do the accounts, I mean, I normally would never comment on any of the accounts, but I do have just a couple of, just like an explanation of a couple of payments.
Oh, that's
That's not
Yeah, that's
necessarily
E.
lettered.
Okay, so B, C, D, and E.
Yep.
Okay.
payments.
Okay, so let's start with the discussion of B. Look at that, design review minutes, just like that.
Yeah, perfect.
So, Stacy, would you like to give us just a little bit of the
A little
flavor
bit.
of the discussion, as it were?
Really, the design review committee doesn't have the option to approve or disapprove things, whether they like it or dislike it. They often feel the same as you and me when sitting there reviewing an application. Sometimes personally they don't like it or do like it, but they have to look at the guidelines. That's all they have, that's their mandate. They have to look at the guidelines and interpret them with regards to the application they're reviewing. And John was at the meeting too, that's really all they have to look at. So that's why, and it specifically says there, no raw wood, and yes, Petrie's right, there are other examples who didn't get a permit, and, you know, that's unfortunate too. So, but this application, they had to review it in terms of the guidelines. The guidelines say no raw wood or wood look, so that's pretty much all they could do. They tried to offer suggestions, so they suggested maybe not paint. They're actually not that fans of paint. They thought a dark gray stain, similar to the paint that's underneath the,
Tie it to the building.
to tie it to the building more. That was their suggestion, to try to tie that fence in to the existing building. And there's the wainscoting around the front of the building and also on the other side, of the east side. So they thought, oh, that'll tie the fence in nicely to the building by staining it that dark gray color was their suggestion. And that's really all they can do.
Petrie, what's your response to dark gray staining?
It's kind of like anything, if that was the worst case scenario, Ontario, we would make sure that, you know, that we would comply with that. But you see the kind of position that we're put in, and this has happened to me many times before, is that you hate to be like the person who just says, yeah, okay, we will do that, but no one else is, but we'll do that.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from, where it's definitely time, and there's many people off the record in this room and involved closely with the committee who have said that the review committee and the guidelines need to be redone.
Mhm.
That is
Yeah.
for sure.
And we're going to do that in
And we all
spring.
agree on that.
We
And
are looking at that.
If you're asking me now, which is
Yeah.
very nice of you, I think that it's time too that people in the room, or however the committee has decided, needs to be relooked at. Like, I don't necessarily think, and I don't mean to step on anyone's toes, I just don't think that we need to bring someone who doesn't live in our town to come in and tell us what our town should look like. And I know that might sound like a crazy idea, but we don't need a professional person that doesn't how, it's not where it starts for me
Well,
anyway.
the only thing I would say about that is that Bob Inwood he's a heritage expert, and it has been something that's been important to Rossland to keep the heritage feel to the town, because we are, we don't want to look like, I won't mention any names, but that's not nice, but I can mention a number of interior cities in the Kootenays that have no flavor, no sense of self, right? And so that is important. So I would disagree with you about the value that Bob brings to it, but I 100% agree with you that it needs to be a made in Rossland solution too. We can take his expertise, and he's going to come and talk to us about heritage, right? But then it's up to us to decide how we want to apply it.
I just think there's such a melting, mixing of minds, especially in this room, that enough people with history, with business, with future business, with even just being around back in the day and knowing that there's such a great idea of what should happen with the look of the town, that leave it up to a small committee to redo those guidelines.
Well, I think that's we're certainly going that direction. I'm going to go to Lloyd first here. Yes,
I just, when I read the guidelines and that, it says to preserve the wood, and I thought of stain, and I don't like painted fences either, and I thought of the stain, and I wasn't hung up on making it compatible with the rest of the building, because the wainscoting is gray, and we're also hearing from the design review that those door frames and the doors should be dark brown, and I don't think they really go nicely with gray anyway.
Right.
So I'd rather see a stain that makes the wood look natural, but preserves the wood.
John?
I'd just like to say that I think the purpose of the design review guidelines is to try to maintain a unified look and one look of the heritage. When you get a whole bunch of different minds, everything gets changed, and then the whole downtown the look would change. For sure. So I think the reason for the design review guidelines is to maintain the look that's there, the heritage look.
Sure. And I agree with that. The compliance part is just tough for me to swallow sometimes. It's just some do and some don't.
Yeah. Andrew?
The compliance part is my question. I was curious to learn more about the process of it. So at what time does the design review committee come involved with someone who has a project like this project?
Depending on the project. So for a sign, normally they would be advised if they come in and get a business license that they need to get a sign and so then they'd be told they need to get a development permit, in which case then they would apply for the permit, and the design review committee would have a meeting and discuss the sign. In the case of building or landscaping, usually it's at building permit stage. So in Petrie's case, he came forward with a building permit to put a new door, and then with the associated landscaping, so it came at building permit stage. So he was advised then that he needs to get a development permit, and then a meeting was called.
Okay, so it's part of whether the building permit is approved.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Andy?
So just adding to that, my question would be some of the issues that have come up with neighbors, for example, offenses that obviously didn't go through the process. How did that happen, and why was there not some enforcement, I guess, is more than anything?
Yeah, well, it's primarily complaint-based. Enforcement is generally the way it works, and there was no complaint, so.
I'm amazed that, well, no, I'm not. So a bit surprised that there isn't an effort, especially when it comes down to our downtown core, where it is a highly visible spot. And, we have building inspector, we have 15 people working our public utilities. That you can't just keep an eye out and then we initiate an enforcement investigation and stuff like that. I get frustrated when I can totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious, guys building a fence in the main street, you're gonna see it, and yet nobody does anything.
Well, it's hard even with enforcement too. I mean, there's other signs that have been put up and have been up for years, and we received numerous letters, we're told we're gonna take it down, and they haven't removed it, and it's,
You just hope for
you
I
just hope for compliance a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I just think that we've got to look to have greater coordination between the design review and the heritage committee. I thought Andrew's question was really good, because at what stage are they getting involved? Because I don't like the plain aluminum finish around the door jambs and that kind of thing, and then one of the things you put in a door, and now they're asking you to paint the door after the fact. You know, I'm just wondering why couldn't they have been colored aluminum, you know, to fit in the heritage. And I think part of the problem is there's no coordination between those two committees. And yeah, we probably got to look at the guidelines.
I think that'll all come together when we do this sort of design review, right? Because Heritage Commission will be involved in that. We're going to have all the stakeholders in the room, including people, public people, as well as commission people and all that, to try and get this coordinated and get it in change.
And just to add, Bob Inwood there, he's done a number of heritage decor type downtowns for various municipalities. I don't think he's bringing his ideas in. He's very, you know, receptive to any ideas Roslyn would.
And I only go from like the guidelines from, you know, a no wood look and quotations to me going, wow. And I look at I was lucky enough to go to the museum recently and go through all these future pictures that we want to put up, because we're called the Rossland Beer Company. We're completely respectful of the history of the town, and that's why we named it Rossland Beer Company. So when I went through and I didn't see any wood color painted anything in the town back in the day. It was very impressive how they made it look. And in saying that, the segue into that is that the bus depots that we have in front are amazing. They look amazing, they're beautiful,
and they're all wood.
Completely wood.
They're natural.
Wood apart.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Mark.
it's compliant.
My only comment on this is, you know, I look at Rossland today, it's very, very attractive and appealing. If you look at Rossland in 1980 or 81, I mean, it was ugly. I mean, there's no question. When you look at how far this place has come, because people have talked about it, they adopted the heritage historic theme. And, you know, I mean, in some ways, the early mining towns were like early poverty style, right? I mean, it's like everything that starts out, and then gradually, as the economy picks up, you get buildings like the Rossland Courthouse and all the other buildings around here. I mean, it's a pretty special set of buildings, and people have treated them with respect, and they've made them look nice, and that's good for business. And so I think as we move towards, you know, the next iteration of these design guidelines, I think we've got lots to think about, but we shouldn't, you know, and I really like what you're saying. You went to the Rossland Museum, you looked through the archives, you looked through the photos, and you said, well, what kind of fits?
Exactly.
And I don't think we're going to be 100% dead on, and we're not going to be pedantic about these things, but I think if we get it, you know, mostly right, I think Rossland's going to look pretty nice going forward.
Okay, I think we've probably had pretty much enough discussion about this, but I want, you got something scintillating? Let me just say one thing, because what we need to do is look at the recommendations the design review put forward and see if we want to adjust them and give poor people here a little bit of, you know, relief, or what? So do you have something else to add before we get to that part?
Number one, if Petrie can wait till after we do this design review thing with Bob Inwood.
Oh.
And when was that? When is it?
Well, we don't have the date set yet, it's not scheduled yet, it's in the spring. I don't think I would like to request an entrepreneur to wait.
I think those bus stops do not fit in downtown Rossland.
Actually, I like them.
I'd like to change that. And I think that's kind of where it comes back down to. It's subjective. Everyone has an idea of what they like and what they don't like. The mayor happens to like them, you don't, I do.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to get back to this because we do need to move on. So what we have, Aaron,
I'm gonna move that we accept the report of the Design Review Committee with the amendment, that we do not accept their first recommendation of their second, item of business, that being it is painted or stained the same dark gray.
Same dark gray. So do you wanna just take out the dark gray part? Or is painted or stained? Oh, as the wainscoting, okay, so take out that whole thing.
Take out the whole.
Take out that whole
Take out the
thing.
whole first bullet point.
Okay, so it says the boards are oriented horizontally.
Shouldn't that be vertical?
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
horizontally?
You did you have an opposition to that? Sorry. I should have asked.
Yeah, did you want
Does that
the,
mean we can stain the wood?
No, the.
Yeah.
I mean.
No, I didn't. I mean, the scodding or wainscoting or whatever it is, I mean, as far as the whole look goes, we were okay with that. I guess it would make more sense as far as which way snow would go, like snow falling inward. So I think that
So
makes
preserve your fence a little longer if it were vertical, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, because this does say horizontally, but that,
No,
I know, no.
was that a miss?
Yeah, I think that's a typo, yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be vertically, isn't it?
It's supposed to be vertical.
Because in the diagram, it's horizontal, right?
yours is
Yeah.
horizontal,
Yeah.
and they were
The
asking.
The
for-
recommendation
Saying
was-
something that we should maybe switch them because it would
Yeah.
be easier, better
Yeah.
for snow.
Yeah, and you agree with that?
And, yeah, I mean, that makes
Okay,
sense.
so if we take out the first bullet, and we
And-
change horizontal to vertical,
I'd change it, yeah.
and the retaining wall material to be concrete, is that good?
Sure, but can we stain the wood?
Yes,
Yeah.
it doesn't say anything,
It won't
the
say
motion
anything
as
like
amended doesn't say anything about what you have to do with the wood, in terms of stain or paint.
Yeah, we'll take it out. But I really like Andrew's idea, we can vote on this, but I like your idea of saying maybe just until we get our, because I don't want to step on the feet of the step on the toes of the design
You'll
review
need a
committee.
fair
by-
process between now and
Yeah,
when
so if we
change.
just sort of say, until we get these things, you know, we could have another motion about that when we're done. So think about
Okay.
crafting that, and we're gonna vote on this, you got the amendment there?
Yes, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Lloyd seconds. Okay, so, so we actually don't need to vote on this now until we vote on all of the information items that we're bringing in, right? Or do you want us to vote on this one? Okay, so we will vote. Any more discussion on that? We're taking out the first bullet and we're changing horizontal to vertical, and otherwise we're good to go. All good? All in favor? Opposed? Nobody. Great. Okay, so.
So, we start with a question, so do we always see these minutes coming back to us before decisions are made?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so. then
And
we're good.
usually what it says, it'll say, you know, accept the minutes with the recommendations within, right?
So I'm just thinking, so the process we just went through right now, I think would be sufficient to carry us through. If we could look at it and pick out, you know, let's just take out this little piece or that little piece.
Yeah,
Give us a chance to look at them all.
I guess
still.
I'd like to communicate to the design review committee that we're kind of wanting them to sort of, because they're gonna keep coming, applying those rules, we're gonna keep coming and saying, nah, and it's kind of demoralizing to them.
And it probably takes a week or two in that
Yeah,
process,
I
that you don't
mean-
want to slow people down, so, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Stacy, do you have any recommendations about that? I mean, we could just put the design review committee on hold until we do this, so all of these things just come to council and we deal with it.
I really want to deal with them all.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
I-
you know, I don't know, I'm just thinking, I'm looking for suggestions. So Tracy, give us
I
a
just think with the amount that go through, it's very rare that we have one that's an issue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you could communicate to them just,
Nobody complies.
yeah.
I mean, like, we just had half a dozen things that we brought up, and including the city where the bus stops.
Yeah.
So who approved the bus, where the bus stops? I know, John, you don't like it, or, sorry, you don't like it, but someone had to approve it, or else they just didn't comply. And I'm just trying to be the good guy who always
Yeah.
complies, right?
Yeah, and we appreciate that, and we're rewarding you.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah, so, okay, so hold on, let's not get too far off track. Aaron?
I don't think we should suspend the operations of the design review panel.
Okay.
I think what we should be telling them is, we appreciate the work you're doing,
Mhm.
keep on doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Between now and the time that we review the design review guidelines, we may be picking pieces out,
Mhm.
but we're not trying to undercut your authority,
Mhm.
because we totally understand what good work you do. Now, if that's a letter, I guess
Mhm.
so be it, or do you think you could just convey that?
Yeah, I can convey that.
Okay.
And John can too.
And John can too,
Okay,
right.
I think that sounds good.
It's- I think they'll understand, because generally, as Tracy said, there's not always controversial applications that come through.
Right.
And the wood, in the past, has been a controversial issue that has come through. So that they will completely understand, but other applications that have come through. There really has been no issue, and it's general good discussion between the applicant and the design review committee. So.
Great, John.
I'm just wondering if we can get input from the design review committee on changes that they'd like
Oh,
to
for
see.
sure. Oh, yeah, they have a list.
Yeah, well, you could tell them that perhaps if they'd like to
Yeah.
apply the design guidelines loosely, we might be receptive to that, right? So they can kind of fluctuate a little bit in this, because we're in this transition period, right? So, okay, are we done on this one? I think we're done on this. We're going to move on to C, which was Martin, you had C, and that was something about the fire truck, right?
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for the time, I appreciate it.
Sure,
And,
thank you.
Since I have the opportunity, I'd like to thank everybody. So far, since the changes have been made, it's been unbelievable, the difference already. So,
Aw,
thank you so much.
thank you. And do you like the art?
We love the art.
Okay, take care. Okay, so you were...
Yes, as I read through it, I just saw a new fire truck for Rossland at, $424,000, and I just wondered if you had a comment about that. Was there any discussion around that? How did the decision come about?
It came about because the truck, Rossland needs a 4x4 truck, so it'll come to Rossland as opposed to one of the other communities, but the truck that we had evidently broke down, and I don't know how old it was, but it is what needs to be replaced. So, and it's part of their cycle of replacing their equipment. So,
You've answered the question.
yeah.
So it's sort of part of a normal...
It's part of a normal, but it was moved up a year because, I think it was either moved up 1 year or 2 years because of this catastrophic problem that happened with it. I don't know, the engine blew, or there was something disastrous with it.
So I'm just sort of
Yeah.
wondering about whether this is an extraordinary expense item on the regional district budget or not.
No, it was a planned expenditure, but it was just moved up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next one is D, that's the request for a letter of support for the Francophone daycare. That was you, Lloyd.
I move that we support it.
Okay, we don't even have to do that because it's already, the recommendation was to support it, I think, in there. So, yeah, I think that's actually pretty cool they're trying to do that, right? And we need more daycare space in town. Everyone says it's really, really tough. Okay, so then the next one is E, and that is, Martin, that was payments.
Yeah, just a quick one, a couple of questions here. I noticed in the payments, there was a payment of $50,000 to the Southern Interior Development Initiative for $50,000. Is that just a flow-through?
No, that was the returning the grant that we got from Civic for our broadband. We had to turn it back, yeah, because we weren't there.
Just an unusual...
Sad you'd bring that up.
50 grand.
It's a particularly sore spot.
All right.
Yeah.
What's Zimbabwe Orphans for $80?
That was a charity that we set up in the early 2000s when we had our FCM agreement when we were visiting Zimbabwe. When the political atmosphere deteriorated in Zimbabwe, we no longer were able to get funds into the Lions Club, but we kept, you get to, if you want to be part of it, you can, and it's just a direct donation from your paycheck into that fund. And then
It's a payroll deduction program?
Yeah, payroll deduction. And then since we can't get funds into Zimbabwe, we've been donating money through World Vision and others.
Okay, so my only point is there's no local taxpayer money going into the Zimbabwe
it's all
orphans.
You have to sign up with the direct payroll.
Thank you.
Is this staff
Yeah.
that are doing this?
Yeah,
Good on you.
and last, council could sign up.
Could we sign up?
Right, yeah, we sign up,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I have it out of my paycheck still, right, it's like
Yeah.
$5 or something,
Yeah.
it's some small amount.
Yeah, if you're interested, let me
Who do
know.
we talk to?
Why don't you put it, just put the, you know what, I'd be interested, because I brought this up last time, I know there was a discussion about World Vision,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't keen about World Vision because it's religious-based, right? So then we had that whole discussion about some other charity that maybe was a non-denominational. So why don't you just put the information in our information package?
Sure.
And if people are interested, they can sign up.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we have a motion to accept our information items as amended? Really, because we just had that. John, second. Aaron, all in favor? Good to go. None opposed. Okay, members report. Who wants to start? Lloyd.
Well, I've been in contact with Deb Rintoul at the library, and their their meetings, they conflict with the council meetings, so I haven't been able to go, but she's sending me information. I was just ready to leave the house to come down here, and I got some information on budget and some of their plans. Their AGM is going to be set for March the 10th, 2015. I went there and had a number of discussions with her because they were concerned about the cuts. And I'm, you know, the renovation in the library on the street there's a lot of people questioning that. You know, they think the library is quite functional now, but you know, so I'm going to convey that back to their board for a chance I get when they have a meeting that doesn't conflict with that.
Okay, I would say that's your personal observations from on the street as opposed to that's not a council opinion
Oh, no,
that we're
certainly not
questioning
mine
that.
either.
Yeah, okay, just so it's clear.
I'm just gonna say, just one question, Lloyd, or a comment maybe. I'm pretty impressed by the fact that the library board is being so aggressive and progressive in this community, and I would think that the community's gonna speak one way or the other. With their wallets and their checkbooks. So this project, you know, thankfully they're not soliciting the town for those funds or even a portion of those funds. It's their own initiative. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
See what kind of
Yeah,
success they have.
yeah. All determined by them.
Right. Anything else for your members' report?
No, not really.
Aaron?
If we're looking for something to fill up our newsletters at some point in the future, and I know we've got plenty of material stogging them up already, but it might be interesting to publicize through those newsletters what the vision for the new library is all about.
Okay.
Because I said, before I heard their presentation, saw what they were talking about, I was pretty skeptical about the whole idea of revitalizing the library too, but they completely sold me.
Well, and their participation numbers have been so dramatic, the increases have been so dramatic, yeah. Lloyd?
I'm sorry, I missed something here. On the Winter Carnival, that fellow that came here from Las Vegas, I guess they call it, he sure made a commitment, and he followed through on that commitment. I just looked at, and the major thing, he reduced those expenditures by half what they were spending in previous years on that event. So I think we should acknowledge that.
That's good.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we write letters to all of the, not just the organizing committee, but also Big Red Cats, who donated their time, and the Las Vegas guys, it's both of them that were key in that. And also, we had several city employees who I would like them to get...
Volunteered their time.
Yeah, who donated their time. And I would like us to send a letter to them personally as well, because that's above and beyond the job, and I really appreciate that. John?
I forget the company who brought the cat in.
Right.
Big Red
Brought
Cat.
it in.
No.
Not Big Red Cat.
The transport. The transport company,
That
yes.
was a $2,000 donation from those guys,
Yeah.
and they deserve a huge letter.
Yeah, that's great.
And also,
Cynthia, are you grabbing all these letters?
something that could be a problem in the future.
Okay. We're gonna
Could
need...
be a problem in the future?
Yeah, okay, all right.
There was a lot bigger, commitment than
Right,
they
they
thought.
didn't expect that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't expect it, so that's
Okay.
something the committee will have to look at in the future.
Okay, Lloyd, is that it for your members' report? Aaron?
I attended the 7 Summits board meeting. They have a monthly board meeting. The only big item of interest is their ongoing search for expanded property for next year. They anticipate their enrollment demands will exceed the space they've got now, and actually they're making some good progress.
Great.
So I think it's almost a foregone conclusion that we will see an expanded 7 Summits next year. It's just not clear which of the few alternatives they have available to them they'll do that with. But it will be a bigger operation next year.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, Andy?
Nothing present.
Nothing for you? Okay, Andrew?
I've been doing a fair bit of searching around this week on that whole fleet management thing I was mentioning last Wednesday. Like, the downside is that the one program that I was so excited about last Wednesday, I was talking to the girl that's running it, and she's actually now had some personal mental breakdown issues and is shutting down the company.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately. She did give me 2 or 3 recommendations of some others who didn't sound quite as good as hers, but I'll keep looking into those. So sadly, maybe with Cedar Rock, we can pick up her business. It was a good idea.
Another one for you.
Revenue generation.
And then I've been putting together some more ideas on that. Actually, a lot of just talking with my dad, especially on the wind side of things, and I'm more and more leaning towards wind being probably our strongest opportunity on that one. And he was giving me sort of some basic numbers and performers to work with. A lot of good opportunities there that I'll pass the information around as we get it more fleshed out. But just getting the ideas on paper right now.
What's the update from the SC brainstorming session? When are we likely to see?
So I'm anxious to hear tomorrow night too. I only just briefly had a couple emails back and forth,
Okay.
but I'm kind of gonna experience the surprise. and
Okay,
anticipation
because
of it
if there are task forces that get developed, we'll want to
Yeah.
advertise for people to join those task forces, so we need to know which they are. Andy, did you have a question?
So we have to approve the task force.
Right. But I'm saying part of it, when we get that, we want to keep moving forward, because there's a few steps and stages.
So, the letter that I saw, explained that, tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock here is a meeting?
What is
that
it? What
is
is
that
that? I
correct?
don't know about
That's the
that.
regular SC meeting Wednesday.
Oh, the regular
Is it
SC
right?
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so that is an update of that event that we had, 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, they got together during our CAL last Wednesday, and
Yeah,
we kind of got it all together to present to us this week.
Oh, okay.
So is that meeting tomorrow, obligatory attendance from council?
I don't think
No.
it was obligatory. It did say open to everyone, of course,
It's
on there, but.
open, yeah, it's open, but it's just the SC meeting. I mean, if they want to come to council, they should come to a council meeting as a delegation
Okay.
and
Yeah, 'cause
present to us,
I can't make it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I don't, staff, that's not the understanding that council is supposed to attend this thing tomorrow, right? Okay. Okay, good, thanks.
That's it for me.
John?
Okay, design review, I think we just.
Hammered that one pretty good.
I do have one thought on the design review committee. When I was sitting at that meeting, it wasn't that one, it was another issue. Ken Turner is a very talented painter and designer, and he was coming up with a lot of ideas. This was on a sign, and he was saying, well, you should do this to it, and all those ideas were accepted. Ken Turner is giving away his expertise to the design review committee and getting nothing in return. I'm just wondering if he shouldn't be hired as a consultant to the design review committee, because he is putting a lot into it.
He's a member of the committee.
He's
He
always been a
volunteers.
member.
Yeah.
He's largely responsible for the last 10 years of painting downtown, and
Yeah, Tracy?
Perhaps a switch between camera position.
Yeah, that could be.
oh, okay.
Later.
Later,
Sorry.
yeah.
Now.
Yeah. You girls didn't hear that. We're not talking about that, yeah. Okay, so any more reports?
The only other thing is Heritage, and I have no idea where that's going, but it's a huge,
Yeah,
so
okay.
stay tuned for further installments.
Okay. Martin, members' reports.
Just the Chamber of Commerce meeting was this evening, and I, of course, had to be here. So they are reviewing some options for the future, and so I'll report back on that later.
Okay. Okay, first on my list was Winter Carnival. We need letters for all those people, so we've got that handled, because they really did a great job. I just wanted to say that I thought our strategy session that we did was good, and I look forward to, our next steps with that. We're gonna have to come out with give staff some more direction on parameters and benchmarks and get our plan public and all that, and then staff will come back to us with a management plan, and I thought Gary Okadin did a great job facilitating for us, and we can send him a letter of thanks as well. So that's good. The sewage committee thing that I'm on, that's with Warfield and Trail and Rossland, and I'm really happy that the group agreed to expand the local advisory committee to have 3 representatives from each community, because in the liquid waste management plan guidelines that are put out by the province, they say those advisory committees should have broad representation from the community, and the way it was set up, where it was just 1 representative from each community, doesn't seem very broad to me. And I'm happy to say that Trail and Warfield agreed, and so each community can now have 3 people. So we'll be putting out an advertisement looking for volunteers for that position, and hopefully we'll get some good people. Also happy to report that we are nearly at the end of the bridge funding agreement and maintenance and operations agreement. That should be concluded soon. And also our next newsletter is due out this month, February, and I thank Martin for a submission. If anybody else has some things to submit, so we make this a group effort, would be good. As we'll do whatever we can as space permits, but I would like to get that out before the end of the month. Looking forward to the results of the thought exchange process. I was going to check and see how many people had participated, and I didn't do it before I came to the meeting, so I don't know. Last I heard there were over 100, which was good because, as you all know, this is a fairly complicated process, so it was good to get people involved.
And you have some paper,
and I have
hard
three.
copies.
Yeah, I have 3 hard copies to be input later tonight. And I think, without further ado, we can adjourn this meeting and recess to in camera. Have a mover for that. Oh wait, sorry, I got to give the sections. Which sections? Yeah, no, I know, but yeah, they are. So we are going to recess in camera. Proceedings be closed to the public pursuant to Section 91C, Labor Relations, E, Acquisition, no, we're not doing that one, I don't think. Litigation, K, negotiation, E, Auditor General for local government. That's it. Okay? So, thank you, ladies. Somebody want to take a couple-minute break?
I would take a quick stretch.